Hey guys, and welcome. We have a co-host today, and that's Pippa. I really enjoyed making that video about the bleakest movies, and it seems like you guys enjoyed my recommendation, so here's part two. One of you also said that I should watch Children of Man, which I could have sworn I watched like 15 years ago, but had zero recollection of. So within a couple of days, I gave it a watch, and oh my god, it was so good. As this commenter mentioned, Children of Men does seem more prevalent now than ever, and that's why I was partially inclined to make a part two, because I wanted to remind people of this movie and spread the word further. So why don't we start my new list of recommendations with said Children of Men. Children of Man talks about a future set in 2027, where the fertility rates are at zero. The movie attempts to depict a society which slowly unravels due to everyone's inability to predict what's next, whether or not there's any hope, trying to figure out if there's anything left to live for. Governments grow more authoritarian, immigrants are rounded up and caged like animals, and the privileged retreat into numbness. Those are the lucky ones. At least they get to cling to some distractions, separate themselves from the unrest and the general danger taking place on the streets, as fringe groups try to take the power back. We can imagine the slow erosion of purpose. When there are no children, there's no later. And when there's no later, people descend into chaos. Theo, the protagonist, embodies this world weariness. Once politically engaged, he now drifts through life detached, numbed by alcohol and disillusionment. He's apathetic, cynical, and we can't really blame him for that. But all of that changes when he encounters Key, a young refugee who miraculously carries the first pregnancy in 18 years. He has to make a decision now. Either try and avoid any type of responsibility that comes with becoming witness to a miracle, or make it his life's mission to try and help the girl. Their journey to protect her proves to be a treacherous one, since most of the people they come across would do anything for an opportunity at a better life, and being in possession of a baby would grant them great power. But neither Key nor Theo want the baby to be used for political leverage or further propaganda. There are no grand speeches about hope, no clear path to redemption. Instead, we see advertisement for suicide pills, overcrowded detention camps, apathetic bureaucrats. The violence is so sudden, messy, and often without resolution, where even the potential good guys do things so questionable, we have to ask ourselves if the ends really justify the means. At what point does it stop being about the people, the vulnerable populations, and once again becomes a power struggle? Or maybe power is just necessary to make any changes, even if it means cracking a few eggs. At its core, Children of Men is less about the mechanics of infertility and more about what happens when humanity loses its narrative of the future. Children are not only biological successors, they are symbols of continuity, reasons to sacrifice, to endure, to build. In their absence, society reverts to tribalism, nationalism, and nihilism. As I mentioned earlier, this movie hits harder now than ever. It definitely feels like we're in a time where populations are being pitted against each other because of economical instability. It's crucial to keep in mind that despite our differences, most of us are trying to do our best with the information we're given, to try and prevent from othering people to the extent where we don't even view them as human anymore. Number 2, Moon. Moon was released in 2009 and most certainly has not received the acclaim it deserves. Set in the near future where lunar mining provides Earth with abundant energy, We follow Sam Bell, an employee stationed alone on the moon for a 3-year contract. Since it only requires one person to carry out the tasks, his only company is Gertie, an AI assistant. At first, Sam's solitude feels like the film's main subject, since he's been convinced communications with Earth have failed, and his only means of human contact has been receiving sporadic messages from his wife, who's back on Earth. So the viewers are under the impression they're witnessing monotony, loneliness, and the slow unraveling of a man cut off from everyone else. Yet, as Sam begins to experience hallucinations and physical decline, we realize something's off, and there is more to this story. You see, Sam is not unique, not an individual at all, but one of a long line of clones, each destined to deteriorate and be discarded once their usefulness expires. This revelation transforms Moon from a movie about isolation to an existential nightmare. If identity can be copied, if memory and emotion can be mass-produced, what remains of the concept of self? As we learn more about Lunar Industries, the faceless corporation behind the operation, we discover how pragmatic this solution is, as it's much cheaper to recycle human lives than to employ or compensate real workers. The clones' memories of a family, of a life waiting back on Earth, are just implants. In this sense, Sam is both worker and product, his humanity reduced to an expendable resource. The horror is not rooted in space or science, but in the cruel efficiency of a system that erases individuality in pursuit of endless output. Visually, the movie feels very claustrophobic. The base is white and sterile, a prison disguised as a workplace. The moon's surface, vast yet empty, devoid of any feeling of comfort or familiarity. Everything feels cold and impersonal, like a lab. Gertie, the AI, only complicates things further. While programmed to serve the corporation, it shows flashes of empathy, helping Sam confront the truth rather than suppressing it. I have to say, it's very ironic how even the machine shows more humanity than the humans who built and profit from it. So while the first two movies on the list both wrestle with the ideas of bureaucracy, corporate indifference, and the quiet sacrifice of human dignity for efficiency, why don't we switch the gears a bit and focus on the movie Hopeless and Bleak for completely different reasons. While reflecting on technology, corporate greed, and the complexity of power can all bring us to despair, there's something that feels closer, more tangible, and in a way more bleak, terrifying, and depressing. And that's the idea of slowly losing the self. Feeling like the person you are is slowly slipping away from you. Things stop making sense. People don't take you seriously as they believe you're becoming cognitively impaired. But you don't feel like that's the case at all. But at the same time, you do feel incredibly lost, alone, and unable to make sense of timelines, events, or conversations in your head any longer. And as much as you can usually, even if just for a moment, escape the societal and economical constructs, there's something you can't escape. And that's losing yourself and your mind to a disease that causes continuous deterioration. Number 3, The Father. It's one of the rare movies that doesn't treat dementia as a medical condition, but rather as a slow deterioration of the self. Where most narratives about aging look outward, at the toll it takes on the family, at the exhaustion of caretakers, Florian Zeller's film looks inward, giving the audience a glimpse at the unraveling mind of Anthony, played with devastating precision by Anthony Hopkins. The result is not simply tragic, but nightmarish. The shifting faces of loved ones, the sudden rearrangement of apartments, the vanishing of familiar timelines. The world becomes a hall of mirrors, and we are trapped inside it with him. The horror of the situation is slow, disquieting, and confusing, but it's also mundane and intimate. The director made an interesting choice in not showing the events as chronological, but instead, in the movie, the time circles, folds, and collapses. A coherent situation proceeds to be undermined by the next, leaving both character and viewer adrift. Hopkins embodies the collapse not only through confusion or rage, but through terrifying moments of lucidity where he realizes, if only for an instant, the reality of his condition. These flashes of self-awareness are perhaps the cruelest. Glimpses of the man he was, understanding what he must be putting his family through. Unlike more comforting depictions of aging, the father denies sentimentality. It does not tell us that love conquers memory, or that identity is preserved in spirit, even as the body fails. In the movie, familiar objects vanish without explanation, mirroring the instability of Anthony's perception. Even the people who love him appear alien, their kindness laced with frustration. The domestic setting, normally a site of safety, becomes claustrophobic and cruel. What makes the father so bleak is its lack of meaning in suffering. Unlike more redemptive movies, there is no transcendent wisdom extracted from Anthony's decline, no narrative of noble endurance. At the end, we're left with the unbearable image of a man reduced to pleading for the presence of his mother, regressing all the way back. I was blown away by the way in which the director and Anthony Hopkins portrayed the disintegration of the mind, the loss of grip on reality, and how it didn't shy away from the harsh reality that we may at some point become a burden, and despite the love and the memories, our families will have to make decisions that prioritize them instead of us. Those are 3 more picks for the bleakest movies. I try my best to find movies that don't get brought up as often, as I know it can be pretty challenging to find new recommendations. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. I appreciate all the support, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.